Everyone, welcome back to the Moonlighters Club and the Boston Ujima project coming together for yours, mine, and ours. It's been quite a journey. We've had a good amount of interviews. I think we're on interview number 5, if I can remember. There's been a lot going on. Yeah, I have a job too, so I'm all over the place. But yeah, it's been great. Boston Ujima project's been featuring some really nice, beautiful local talent. We got more. I'm not gonna spoil. I know you, and I'm for forever. My mom is really psyched about it. She's like, "Could you do a thing with me?" Like, all right, relax. I'm an adult. Let's just start by letting you two introduce yourselves. We'll start here and go there, and yeah.
Excellent. Well, so happy to be here. So happy to be here with you, right? It's great. My name is Nia Grace. I am an entrepreneur here from the city of Boston, born and raised in Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, like all around. I'm the owner of the historic, I call it, Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen, located here in Roxbury, South End, however you want to call it. We've been here since 1957, since we were known as Bob the Chef. Since 2010 as Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen. In 2018, I took over ownership, so just at the 4-year mark. I'm also the owner of the Underground Cafe and Lounge, and I am a proud CEO partner with the Jazz Urbane project.
That was so crispy. Did you just see that? I was just like, no. Go ahead, my friend.
All right, Ron Dorsey. I'm kind of what Boston needs me to be, whatever it needs me to be. We can talk about all of what that means, but I am a proud partner of Nia Grace's and Dr. Bill Banfield's and the Jazz Urbane Cafe. Really looking forward to all of what it's going to be. It is about the honoring of Boston's culture. It is about the revival of many artistic traditions, especially among people of color communities, but it's also about a glimpse into the future of people of color communities as well. So looking forward to making history.
Nice, welcome all the way from Detroit to Boston.
Yes.
One of us now.
Proud native Detroiter.
Yeah. I like people from Detroit because it is Detroit versus everybody. Every time, it's the nicest people ever. Like, I really do. I met some good folks from there. So.
Appreciate it.
So we're going to talk about Jazz Urbane Cafe. By the way, Daryl's, it's amazing. Get here. Every time I'm here, like on vacation, they're like, "Where do I hang out? Ain't no black people around." I'm like, "Yo, Daryl's. Daryl's right over there." You know what I mean? I love coming here. It's a great place. And I love, Nia, how you brought up that you lived in like 8 neighborhoods. For those who are confused, Boston's so tiny that you kind of have to say Roxbury/Dorchester, like if we're all like connected. It's the same thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, unless you're in East Boston, which is like in the middle of nowhere. Like who would be there?
It's East Boston.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about Jazz Urbane Cafe.
Sure.
So I like to just start with, how'd you two meet, and then where did that idea come from after you two met?
So the idea precedes us meeting, and we met through Dr. Bill Banfield, who is really the father of the concept. So the Jazz Urbane was really his brand idea when he came back here in 2005-ish.
Okay.
To come back to Berkeley and lead the Africana Studies department. He always had this imagination for integrating the arts into neighborhoods and into community and really bringing world-class talent to the places where people gather. And so Daryl's was one of those places. The Beehive up the street was one of those places. We've had a partnership with Scullers and Riles and some other folks, but Daryl's is home base. And so the partnership with Daryl's probably started somewhere around 2007, 2008.
Okay.
With a number of our groups performing here on a weekly basis. And around that time, we met this young woman who, even though it said Daryl's, it was clear who was running the place. And so the more we got to know Nia, this really became a collaborative effort to figure out how were we going to bring this concept to a variety of audiences, to the degree that Nia and Bill together were vetting the artists who would show up on the stage, really thinking about what the repertoire was and how to present this on a weekly basis. I was just hanging around the music to some degree. You know, Bill was my professor in composition when I was at the University of Michigan a long time ago. And so, you know, I was carrying the musicians' bags and asking them for tips or whatever and hanging out at the bar and listening to them at the same time that Bill and I were imagining the Jazz Urbane recording label as well. But then we got to talking after Nia became owner about, how this really becomes a linchpin for culture in the city of Boston and South End, and really wanting to tap her entrepreneurial imagination for what this could be. And her leadership has really helped us grow into something that has become more of an experience for Boston, and that, we're looking forward to being a nightly experience at a place in Nubian Square.
Nice. So, Nia, could you explain what the Jazz Urbane Cafe will be when it's open to people who don't know?
Yeah, I first got to say, Ron, you're so poetic. Like, I'm like, this is amazing. This is romantic, right? I want to be all there. So, well, let's just first talk about, our Nubian Square and Roxbury in general. I always like to say that, Roxbury literally is the geographic center of the city of Boston, right? And truthfully, it's the mecca of culture, I believe, for the city of Boston. And it welcomes so many different diverse personalities and cultures and food and just entertainment sources, just in general, artists that are coming from Roxbury, historians, leaders that are coming and thriving and living in, and at some point in time just putting the stamp on Roxbury. I think, but what we start here in this literal edifice, and then what we're going to grow at Jazz Urbane is going to be, like us amplified by 100. Mm-hmm. So that's literally what I feel about. It's just going to be an explosion of all the things that we've been developing over the years coming out of Jazz Urbane, right? And that's me trying to be as poetic as Ron, maybe not, but
you did a whole lot better.
But really, what's that experience? We're talking about a unique but familiar dining experience. It'll be food that you're familiar with when you look at the items and the names, but it'll have, again, a more of a cultural and interesting twist on it. When you come in, it's going to be entertainment, but not something that they just carved out for us, but in fact, a stage made and built for this kind of platform of amplification for artists who are developing here in our city. For me, it's so often a shame that I know how many artists are going through Berkeley that leave here almost immediately. Mm-hmm. Why? Because there is no, they went from a smaller stage in their classroom to a slightly larger stage, maybe in the neighborhood, and then nothing intermediate and nothing even larger that would allow them to have a residency, have something to really cultivate their growth and maturity. And it's like, it's time for me to go because I've outgrown Boston. And so when I think about Jazz Urbane, it's that opportunity finally to have a little bit more of what we've been desiring. Mm-hmm. When we think about the limitation of our spaces, and my history is really, I have a self kind of directed study and observing and looking at the history of Black-owned establishments in the city of Boston, and understanding that we have about 62 of them that are considered a bar and or a restaurant, and knowing that only 8 of them are fully transferable licensed, right, and that have an opportunity to make a different kind of wealth, in fact, not just make an income, but actually have some kind of wealth. So to know that with new legislation that Jazz Urbane also brings not just this culture pot, but also an opportunity for wealth, right? When we think about the Ujima project and when we think about the individuals that are going to be able to come and work a really good job, not a full-time job, a part-time job, but be able to come in, the Jazz Urbane to me is really just opportunity and the future. So, I really hope that I was able to give you an idea of what you might get when you get there. But if you want some more, we're talking about local musicians who are going to be performing throughout the week. We're talking about a stage for national acts to also call us a place to come and again, put on that big show. Think about what would happen when we went to the Strand Theater, when we had national acts touring through our neighborhood, and we were able to go and get dressed up and do what we did on a Friday and Saturday night. That's what, to me, is going to be returning to our neighborhood and revitalizing Nubian Square. And again, that just neighborhood bar, that while I love the place that I'm in right now, we just need a little bit more space because we went through that booming era, right? And so we just want a little bit more space. And so we're going to be able to have that, to spread out, to grow, to commune, to make neighbors again, right? We're in a city where in fact it kind of feels like things are just transactional. I think we're going to get back to a really great emotional piece of being out.
This is, you're both poetic. I don't even say what we're doing. What are you doing?
This is a debate. We're gonna fight.
No. We're just going to keep building on each other.
I love it.
No, first of all, thank you. I grew up in the city, so it's interesting, and you're aware of this. I meet people. I live in DC now, so there's black people in Boston, and you probably hear that in most northern cities, except for Detroit and Chicago or New York, right? And I'm like, no, they're here, but you're not going to where we are. There's no reason for you to. So now I come in, I visit. Today I've been walking around the Seaport District, walking around downtown, Back Bay, seeing things closed and seeing new things built. The only neighborhood that's been exactly the same since I've moved in 2020 is Roxbury. As soon as you cross Nubian Square, it's houses, and you're like, okay, this feels good, but we need to do something because I don't want to come back here and see. If you have a dog and you want to run in the middle of the night, go ahead, do that, go crazy. But we don't need that just yet. Like we gotta let's build something here because it is a really important space. When I was growing up, I went to the Timothy, I went to Latin Academy. When it was called Deli, it was Deli, but that's where all the black kids were hanging out. We were eating at Arizona's, waiting to catch our buses home, hanging out with our friends, playing around. If there was a game at Madison, we'd go there. Changing the name of it to Nubian Square was important. It feels weird now because you're like, I didn't even think we had pull like that in this city. And then seeing things like black markets sprout up. So I think that's a perfect place to have this. Was it that intentional to put it right there in Nubian Square in terms of the Jazz Urbane Cafe? Were you looking at different spots around the city, or was it no, this Roxbury, it has to be Roxbury?
Well, this was really an artifact, I think, of the city of Boston recognizing the special experience that Jazz Urbane was becoming. And so the city, under John Barros's leadership at the time and the Walsh administration, approached Bill Banfield and said, would you consider doing this in a place? Would you consider making this a permanent experience here in Boston, and let him know that they will be running a public RFP process to compete for the retail space that will become the Jazz Urbane? So Bill pulled together a team, really thought about what that concept would be, and had to do his homework and compete with other entrepreneurs who wanted to see things come to the space. Fortunately, that process was also one that was juried by people who were in the community, so they had a real stake in saying what they wanted to see there, and it could have been everything from national chains to more boutique sorts of things. But when they thought about the thing that would be kind of the crucible for culture, that would fulfill, as Nia said, a lot of unfulfilled dreams about what belonging could be in Boston, this was the experience that they decided to go with. And the city's been an incredible partner for us on that space, but they and we have seen it as an anchor for the continued vitality of Nubian Square. And I was careful to choose my words because I get a little offended when people talk about the revitalization of Roxbury and Nubian Square. It's up and been here, so this idea that it's up and coming is offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those of you who may not know who are watching this, like I work in sales, I worked in sales most of my life. The concept of an RFP, this request, is these lengthy, long documents, and a lot of it has to do with, I'll campaign for work from the state. And you just fill these long documents out about who you are, your background, all your employees. You have to make all these attachments. It takes weeks to just make this thing, and then you got to submit it, and then you got to wait. If there's anything wrong with it, they give it back to you. There's a deadline. So it's like 40 pages of work, and it could be for absolutely nothing, which most of the time for me is absolutely nothing. So kudos, because the fact that that was the process and that you got it made, that's incredible just to begin with. And Nia, we got to get into this. I've been to this place. I see you here. You run this place. You're busting it. Like what you've done with the place is amazing, but you're working hard. I can't believe you're doing Jazz Urbane as well, because one, you've not gone crazy. This place is amazing. You put your all into it. Were you worried at any point, this cafe, let's do it, that it'd be too much for you? Or were you skeptical about taking this additional work on top of running this that you already do?
Yeah. Well, I got to say that, I came into the project a little bit later, I think much later than Ron, right? Bill was there at the table. The idea was brought to him to take over that space, and then it was just me, right? But I'd always been an ear for Bill if he ever needed anything. As he was going through the process, it was like, well, what do you think about this? I had no idea what he was talking about until I saw it. I was like, is that the mayor announcing? Is this, what? Call him right now, right? But I never wavered in lending any of my resources and time to say, hey, like I'm always going to be an ear. So when we approached it formally to figure out what my role would be in the project, I think that I was very much aware of my limitations. And I'll say it actually happened in the middle of the pandemic while I was still 6 people only here at Daryl's trying to open the cafe down the street. But I was just like, well, if I carve it out in a certain way, I think that this can work. It's super manageable because let me tell you what I love about this team. And maybe it's because they're, out of Michigan, and although I love my Bostonians, right? I just feel that this team totally understood from the beginning collaboration and that we all wear different hats and we're going to excel in what our expertise is. And so here at Daryl's, I am almost, I've got a great team here, right? But I am the spearhead of a lot of the projects to make that great team run. With the Jazz Urbane project, we've got the maestro of music, We've got the conductor of community relations, and then I am the operator of the restaurant, right? And so I don't actually have to wear all the hats that I do here, and it's a relief, in fact. And it's something that gives me joy because I'm actually able to be really most effective and most creative in just one area of this restaurant business. So.
And all that Nia says is true, and at the same time, Bill and I were like, we need to go get LeBron James.
It's so silly.
LeBron, that's what's up. What's up? So it sounds like it's kind of sectioned off based on your talents and how you split things, but the collaboration is key to success in the Black community, and I see it done really well, and sometimes I see it done not so well. How do you figure out how to delegate things, or who should focus on a specific area of the business? It could be the restaurant portion of it, the look of it, things like that. How do you know what to split? Who takes on what? How does that work?
I mean, I'll offer at least 2 things, but I'm really interested in Nia's thoughts on this. I think, first of all, we were careful to kind of shape job descriptions and do the detailed work of kind of saying, what's the role, what are the responsibilities, and how are we going to hold each other accountable for things? Because the project is dynamic, those things keep getting negotiated, but to start off with those agreements matters a lot. I think the second dimension of it, it's a small team, so get in where you fit in. Because there are a lot of things that require the 3-headed monster, that require our extended team of 5, 6 people as well. And we want to make sure that it's a democratic process. I'm uncomfortable with hierarchy for the most part. So I want to make sure that we're hearing from everybody. I want to make sure that there's input from everybody and that everybody gets the satisfaction of being creative in what is a creative venture.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. So Boston Ujima project, how that started up, how that intersects.
So we've been coming for Ujima and trying to convince them to come for us for about 3 years now. In prior professional life, I'd had a number of interactions with Ujima. Sometimes I've been an advisor for Ujima. My wife and I are members of Ujima, and just a lot of friends whose perspective on the world and new economy we respect. So when we were thinking about this venture, we wanted to make sure, one, that on principle, we had significant representation by investors of color in this project. And to the degree that we could, making sure that we had investors who didn't have to go through the hoops of being accredited investors and make so much money or whatever. And so Ujima was actually the first investor entity we ever approached about this back in 2019. Because we knew that it was a quick way to fulfill that wish of making sure that this was for Black folks, by Black folks. So you get to summer of 2019, this was a little bit of an odd proposal for Ujima because usually that membership is identifying the places that work for them and investing further. We actually pitched them on a startup, which hadn't really been done. And so they said, well, we need to reverse engineer this project. Our membership needs to take a look at what you're trying to do, ask questions, make sure you're going to adhere to the community standards. So we did a demonstration in the Nubian Square space of about 100 folks, 50 Ujima members, 50 Roxbury residents, just to get in the space and really whiteboard the concept of the project. We had food in the space. We had one of our bands, great night, because they ended with, if you can imagine this, harpist, saxophonist, drummer, bassist closing with Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was amped. It was amped in there. So it started to give the community an idea of what was to come. And so we were on the road to hopefully courting them as our first investor, and then the pandemic hit. But we made sure that we stayed in touch, let them know what progress we were making. We didn't stop our work. Our work just moved to a different, quieter phase until we could ride this out. But we knew that we did not want to move forward without the Ujima project.
Nice. Yeah, Ujima's awesome. Great. I love everything they're doing. This is just perfect. The point you made about finding investors of color, that's something that scares me all the time, because I grew up listening to rap. So like my whole idea of black folks making it is you do something really well, and then some rich white dude with a suit is like, here's a check. And you're like, cool, 20 bill, baby, I made it. Yeah. But like I haven't, as a kid, you didn't really see too many alternative ways, you know. Then I started hearing words like grassroots and just community involvement and things like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's good to see that it's possible. It may not be as prevalent yet, but it happens. So it happens. We can do this. I
think it's an important step for Boston to take. However large or small that investment is, to kind of say we can do and we can support the things that are important to us.
I was looking through the, Ujima's big on principles, so I was looking through, and not just the investors of color, but community ownership was one that came up. What does that mean to you, especially Bostonian? I mean, you're one of us now. Still rep Detroit, but especially you know you're from here. You made a great mark. How important is the effect this has on the community to you?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the biggest things about being a business owner is that you're supposed to be able to provide a service that has been called for or wanted, right? And so what better way than to hear the input of literally the direct community that surrounds the space, but also those people are now investors really saying like, this is what we want, this is what we need. You know, a lot of times we sit in our silos, and I've got to say this as a solo entrepreneur, you know, I'll sit in my silo and think that I hope that this is what the people want. I think I'm in tune enough with what the people want, but how great is it to sit on a Zoom or to sit in a meeting and actually hear firsthand what the people want, so that I have a greater success rate coming out the box. And I think that that is something that's really important for entrepreneurs in general, is that you really, you know, figure out a way to take to task what it is that your community is desperately really asking for, and not just what you want to see out there, because that's going to be the difference between a failure and a success. And so for me, this community ownership piece means that every day I've got a larger charge in front of me than just, you know, making a dollar. That literally is what the difference is. I cannot fail because my community has told me that this cannot fail and this is what we needed. And I feel like that's our greater charge. I can be a bit, and I say that even still when I think about the last 2 years, about how hard the last 2 years have been. I had many opportunities to just put my head down and shut the doors down. But what I knew is I got so many calls from people between the ages of 25 and 85 that said, but you can't go anywhere because we need you. We've always needed this kind of space. We've always needed this haven, right? So you can't go anywhere. We get you tired. We understand, but you can't go anywhere. And I was like, I hear y'all. I'm coming. I'm showing up day 7. So that's what. But I mean, even in tiredness, I did it with so much joy, and it was so much bigger than the numbers. Because trust me, the numbers did not make sense for the hours that we were putting in over the last few years. And that's the same thing when you think about this startup, right? We're going to be putting in hours. We're going to be doing things that at some point it's not going to make sense to us, because when we look at it black and white. But when we look up and we see the faces and we hear the voices and we get that silent tap or that loud nudge that's like, no, you got this, because you got to do this, right? Because this is what we need. I mean, that you need that in order to really get through this business. And so that's what is so special to me about it being about community.
So why jazz? I know you both involved with jazz, right? But to that young Bostonian, or any Bostonian, like Bostonian going to Nubian Square, this place is open now, you know, then they're probably thinking drill music. When can we get a little Dirk in here, right? When we gonna get the city girls in here? And but I have my own history with jazz. I know its importance. But What would you say to that?
Well, let me make sure I represent Dr. Banfield on this one, because he would say it's Jazz Urbane.
Okay, okay.
And so the two stand equally, but there's a language in jazz that, whether we think about it this way or not, really is universal language. It's universal legacy as well. You hear it interwoven through everything we listen to. So one, wanting to pay honor to that tradition that Bill himself comes from as a guitarist and composer as well. But really to name that we're honoring the height of Black creativity in a lot of ways. There may be only one, besides hip hop, American music form that's been invented, and that was jazz. Now there are musicians like, folks that I love, like Christian Scott, who would take all of us to task even over the use of the word jazz, because it's something that they're trying to deconstruct right now for a lot of different reasons. But I think it's important for us to marry jazz and urbane, because we want to capture all of the flavors and expression of identity among artists and producers of color. But a lot of it is rooted in the principles of improvisation. A lot of it is rooted in, if you ever hear Cornel West talk about jazz, he talks about the democracy between the players who are on stage and the deep listening that has to happen among folks in band settings. And so I think we want to build on those principles, but have it be genre non-specific. Yeah, you're gonna see some brothers and sisters blowing horns and doing crazy things on pianos and their instruments, but you're gonna see DJs, dancers, a whole lot of other things in there. As a Detroiter, I grew up on Detroit techno, so I gotta see Juan Atkins and Derek May and Kevin Saunderson here at some point. I love Jay Dilla, so it's a dream of mine to see Guilty Simpson up on that stage. But I also grew up listening to a lot of funk, so I'm hoping we get Van Hunt. I'm hoping that we get sort of that extended Minneapolis family of folks, Stokely Williams and all those folks out of Princess Camp. So a lot of possibilities, but what we also want folks to understand is that, all those things we know and love and listen to, they live here in Boston. You may not know all the artists' names, but they're getting it. And they need a place that they can call home, and they need the right to be able to make livings as artists and not have to do 5 other things to support their passion.
That was beautiful. You just dropped so many jewels. The number one is techno being like Detroit. Like growing up, I was like, I thought techno was from like Germany. Someone's like, nah, man, that's Detroit. I'm like, what? But I'm like, that's what Black folks do, man.
Yes.
I love music in general. I listen to Led Zeppelin, and there are times where they're talking about, I gotta get to Chicago. And I'm like, Chicago? Why is he talking about Chicago? And my friend was like, probably because he stole these lyrics from a blues musician from the
there
South,
you go.
Bro.
There you go.
It's like, yeah, it really is interconnected, and it is a cornerstone. So regardless of how things go, I think what you're doing is beautiful. The fact that you're here, whenever you get a chance to breathe, I know you got a lot going on. It's Wednesday. You got a lot happening.
Thank you for telling me.
Whatever you do, whatever happens from now on, it's great. It's great that you care and you're doing something for us, and I think that's beautiful. So as of now, tentatively, this is coming 2023 or so, 2023.
Yep, 2023.
What advice could you give to anyone looking to start that business, but not just about the dollar? Everyone's trying to leave their mark on the community, especially Black folks. I want to do this for my city. I want to start this thing. I want to leave my mark. Maybe they're stuck. Maybe they haven't even started yet. What advice would you give them? I'll start with you, Nia.
I think one of my most recently, my notes is patience, and really having patience, right? Patience to learn a process that you're not familiar with. Patience to get to know strategic partners and people that might help to grow you in the area that you're trying to be in. Patience when you're working a deal and you think it's straightforward, and it's not straightforward. Because I think a lot of the times that we're really in a rush to get to the end and get to the finish, the big vision that we've seen, that we don't really respect the process. And people say, I respect the process, and then they don't really respect the length of the process. Mm-hmm. And so when I say that more things for me in the last 5 years have grown out of patience and nothing else. Because if I was short with it to cut these things off, I would not be here at all. And I can bet you $1 it just one. I bet you $1 that I would not have been here if I didn't have that. So.
Nice.
I think I would say two things. First of all, rigor. Rigor matters. Is paying attention to all the details, making sure the decimal point is not in the wrong place, making sure the glass is sitting on the table right. If you're building an app, making sure the code is solid, whatever. But it is the attention to detail and the rigor that it takes to do it 1, 2, and 3 times. I think the other thing is that despite the myths that we make about entrepreneurs as kind of these kind of singular heroes, and they look like Elon Musk and Henry Ford or whatever, this work is tribal. It's teamwork. It's about finding the folks who can match your passion for the thing that you want to do. It's about having the humility to know that you can't do it all. And respecting other people's talents and passion and their visions. Because, with Jazz Urbane, it really is becoming an additive and integrated vision. There's a version of this that Bill has had in his head for a long time, but it's morphing, it's changing, it's expanding because Nia and I are involved and other people are involved, and we're hearing from the community more. But it's that tribal nature of the work that's going to make it successful.
Nice. Well, that was awesome. That was great. Iris is one of my favorite players ever, but I'm like, we actually should be practicing. Like, the small stuff matters. You know what I mean? You can wake up out of bed and be great, but having patience and doing the small things will make a difference. Believe me, I didn't want to do them ever. Like, it matters. It matters. So no, I love what you're all doing.
And also, I honestly find somebody, the person that you know in your social circle who's kind of OCD, they need to be on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll take it. So
I don't know what he's saying. But.
No, because you need that person who's just going to, did you think about it? Did you think about it? Did you think about it?
Yeah.
Yep. So until it opens up, is there any way people can be supporting or any way they should be tuning in until the cafe is open?
A variety of ways. We are still fundraising for the project and looking forward to starting construction later this year. But if this is the investment opportunity for you, go to the Jazz Urbane website and our Get Involved page, and you can request information to invest. Until then, there are opportunities to see us in action. I'll let Nia talk about Sundays, but I will mention that we will be a part of the Embrace Festival block party Friday, June 17th in Nubian Square, featuring Bill Banfield's Imagine Orchestra.
Nice.
Yeah, that's for King Boston. And every Sunday, or almost every Sunday, consecutively until we open up the Jazz Urbane Cafe, it's almost essentially where we started. We're back here to do Jazz Urbane Sundays. And so from 6 to 10 p.m., you can get our soul food, our great hospitality, and you can hear Teen Spirit with a jazz band, okay?
Do you remember that night you and I sat here and they first played that?
Listen, okay? I got it on video.
Nia sat down and she was like, this has not happened in this space. And we just sat across the table from each other just mesmerized, and these dudes were up here going in.
And it's so crazy. My brother, my older brother, he works with me too. He's the one who introduced that song to me. Yeah. And that one day he just didn't come to work. And I was like, this dude is missing it. Poor thing. Oh my gosh. I'm just videotaping. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I heard it. Support Jazz Urbane Sundays, just come to Daryl's whenever. And also Jazz Urbane website, we can support. So Nia and Ron, thank you so much
for
everything you're doing. Thank you for the conversation. I had a blast. For everyone watching and listening, Moonlighters Club, thank you so much. We'll be working with the Boston Ujima Project maybe soon in the future. Thanks again to the Boston Ujima Project and everybody who tuned in. And until next time, see you later.